So welcome back to the beginning of the second semester, beginning of the new calendar year. I expected the temperature to be a little bit warmer than it is in our building this morning. When I came in, it is currently about 55 degrees. I'm a little bit on the chilled side, so I have a jacket on. I'll also be sipping coffee as I go along on my lessons. But you'll also notice that my voice is not what it is. It's the strongest it's been in the past couple of days, so I wanted to get in here just in case it gets worse once again, like it did a few weeks ago. We're going to be picking up where we left off before Christmas break. We're going to be dealing with volume once again. We dealt with volume of prisms prior to Christmas break. It's how much can go into a three-dimensional object. We dealt with cubes and we dealt with rectangular prisms. Now, today we're going to be looking at triangular prisms here in just a moment, but I'm going to review this idea. Then the next couple of videos will also not be in our book. You'll have papers to do. Reviewing some parts of a circle, introducing you to the idea of pi on a circle, how to use pi to find the area of a circle, and then we're going to be finding the surface area and the volume of cylinders, which is a three-dimensional tube that has a circle at the top and the bottom. So we have a lot of new information that's not in our book, but if you follow along on the papers that I give you, taking the notes in which I give you and ask you to do, showing all the work that I give you, then the assignments, most of them, are going to be pretty easy. The idea of volume of a prism, once again, is how much can go inside. Now, one of the things that kind of confused some of you on one of your last assignments was that they gave you a rectangular prism and they had the base shaded in, and it showed that it had an area because the label was squared. The idea of volume is truly doing those steps. When I take the formula for volume and I do length times width times height, if I just start with length and width, and I look at the bottom of this cube, which is a square, so I know that the length is 5 and the width is 5. If I just found the area of that base first, 5 times 5 would be 25. Once I know the area of the base, then all I have to do is say, well, what is the height? Because then I could take the area of the base and multiply it by the height. So then I would have 5 times 5, which is 25 times 5, which would be 125 cubic inches to fill in this cube. Same idea with this rectangular prism. If I wanted to just find the base area, then I would take 16 times 9. On my handy-dandy calculator, I could type it in, find that area, but then I would say, okay, but the volume would be multiplying that base area by 4 because there are 4 of them stacked high. So when I think about finding volume, if I find the area of the base, then I just multiply by the height. It's the same idea as multiplying by length times width by height. However, if I think about the base times the height then, the area of the base times the height, that'll help me with my next step, which is the triangular prisms. So it's not just going to be length times width times height. I'm going to find the area of the bases first. And the reason that is because there's that extra step when it comes to a triangle. I can't just say, well, it's length times width times height and try to multiply 3 numbers together. It's not going to work for me. If it was a rectangle or a square, and therefore I would have, the 4 sides, I could do that and stick with the length times width times height. But I have to find the area of the base first. The area of the base is always going to be the triangles. We talked about bases and how lateral sides on a pyramid are the ones that go up and the base was at the bottom. When we talk about base here, we're just talking about the triangular ends, which are always going to be the same because it is a prism. So once I find the area for those bases, then I'm just going to multiply by the height. Well, then how tall is it? If I know the area of this base is this amount, and I multiply by the height, I get the volume of my triangular prism. So I have to start with that. Once again, you're going to start seeing triangles that have 3 numbers, and how many numbers do I need to find the area of a triangle? I need 2, right? So they're going to give the hypotenuse, once again, that slanted long angle that you're not going to use. You're not going to use it because I'm looking for it indicating the height, or it's going to have a right angle drawn either on the inside or the outside to say, this is the height. This double arrow tells me it's the height. So once I find the base times the height, or the length times the height on this one, for my triangle, I would divide by 2, because a triangle is half of a parallelogram, and then I would multiply it by my height. So let's look at this problem. Now find the area of the base. So once again, I'm going to use the 6, and I'm going to use the 4. That 7 is put there to confuse you. Please don't use it. Please don't let it confuse you. Just mark it out on your paper. When I say mark it out on your paper, literally, mark it out on your paper. Take any extra information that they give you that you don't need, cross it out, put a line through it, scribble on it, whatever you need to, so that you don't get confused on doing your math problem. Once I know I'm using these two measurements, then I'm just going to take my 6 times my 4. I know that it's a triangle, so then I divide by 2. Remember, base times height divided by 2. So I have my 6 times my 4, and I know I'm going to divide it by 2. 6 times 4 is 24 divided by 2. So I know the base area of that triangle is 12 square centimeters. That gives me the base area, and then my next step is then to multiply it by the height. So I'm doing this step here, the length times the width, but since it's a triangle, I have to add that extra step of dividing by 2, because a triangle is half of a parallelogram. Once I multiply by my heights, then, my height is my long edge, or going from one base to another. It's the other way that you can look at it. If I know where my base is, then from one base to the other, that's going to be my height. So I'm going to take my 12, and I'm going to multiply it by 12, and I'm going to get 144 cubic centimeters. Once again, cubic, the exponent of 3, or to the 3rd power, because I multiplied 3 different labels together. I multiplied by 4 centimeters, 6 centimeters, and then 12 centimeters. 3 labels tell me I have to cube it, or if I just commit to memory that volume is always going to be cubed, I'll remember that my label needs to have 3 on it. So it doesn't matter what kind of triangular prism that you're given. As long as I follow those steps, I do my length times my width, which is finding the area of the base. But because it's a triangle, I have to divide it by 2. Once I have the area of the base, which is the triangle, then I'm going to multiply it by the height. It's not difficult math. Most of these are not difficult math. They're pretty straightforward and very simple and basic numbers. But as long as I do it step by step, I'm going to be good. So when I look at problem 1, this is on your practice paper. Please follow along. Pick up your handy dandy calculator, your pencil, whatever you need to do it, but show all the steps so you know which ones to do. I like to indicate which numbers I'm going to use. I either cross out the ones I'm not going to use, or I circle the ones that I am going to use. You're going to see me circling on every one of these math problems. So I know I'm going to start with finding the area of the base, or the triangle. So I'm going to take my base times my height for my triangle. I know it's 4 and 4. Once again, I know it's those because they are the perpendicular sides that make the right angle. I could cross this one out and say, nope, don't need it. Cross that one out, nope, don't need it. Those are not important. They're a hypotenuse, and they're there to confuse me. So then I do that math, 4 times 4, which is going to be 16, and I know I'm going to divide it by 2. So when I have 16 divided by 2, then I know the area of the base is going to be 8. Then I look for my height, and my height goes from one base to the other base. So from triangle to triangle has to be the other 4. So I'm going to take my 8 times my 4, and I get 32. 32 what? I go back to my labels, meters, and how many of them? 3. So it's going to be 32 cubic meters. Once again, you can write out the words cubic, C-U-B-I-C, meters, M-E-T-E-R-S, or if you just put the M with the exponent of 3, then that also says cubic meters. So when I look at number 2, circle the 2 measurements that I need to use to find the area of my triangular base. So hopefully you circled the 4 and the 5, the 2 sides that are perpendicular to one another that make that right angle that indicates where the height is. I have my base times my height. It's a triangle, so I divide by 2. If I do the math, 4 times 5 is 20. Divided by 2, 20 divided by 2 is going to be 10. Now I have to do my last step. I have to multiply by my height. My height, once again, is the line that goes from base to base, triangle to triangle. It's the other number that's given, which is a 4, once again, just like previously. So I have 10 times 4. I end up with 40. So I have 40 cubic meters. Pretty easy, right? This is pretty basic math, so it's not difficult. I just have to remember the proper steps each and every time. Every time I'm looking for the base and the height of the triangle. Base and the height of the triangle are always indicated as the perpendicular intersection where that right angle is. Those other numbers are not important. They're there to confuse me. Cross them out. Don't let them confuse you. Doesn't matter. And then I always then use my height, which is going to go from base to base. So if I circle the 2 that I'm going to use for number 3, I'm going to have 6 and 4. Formula for area of a triangle, base times height, divided by 2. So I'm going to type in 4 times 6, divided by 2. 4 times 6 gives me 24. 24 divided by 2 is going to give me 12. That's the area of my base. So then I look for my height, which is 4. 12 times 4 is 48. Have to make sure I have the proper label. So I know it's going to be 48 cubic meters. When I go to number 4, I find the 2 numbers I'm going to use for my base of my, the area of my base, which is 6 and 5. Once again, they are the perpendicular sides that make up the right angle. So I know I have the right numbers. 6 times 5 divided by 2, because that's the formula for area of a triangle. 6 times 5 gives me 30 divided by 2. So I'm going to show that 30 divided by 2 equals 15. That's the area of my triangle. And then I have to find the height measurement. They give us 4 multiple times on these problems. So my height is the 4 because it takes me from one base to the other, from one triangle to the other triangle. 15 times 4 is 60. My label, I look at it, it's meters. I multiplied length, width, height, so I know there are 3 of them. It's going to be 60 meters cubed. So what I would like you to do now, I'm going to say this on the next several videos. Pause the video now and do the next set of questions that are left on your paper. Pause it now and then come back. So hopefully you have your answers, and I'm going to work through them with you. So hopefully you showed the right work and got to the right answers, including your labels. So you were left with 5 and 6 on your practice paper. Hopefully you multiplied your 6 and your 5, because those are the right, the angles that make up the right angle. So 6 and 5, so my triangle have base times height divided by 2. So I would have 6 times 5 divided by 2. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. And then I look for my height. This one, they changed my height on me, didn't they? So still going from base to base, triangle to triangle, is this measurement of 5. So I know my height is 5 meters. So I would take 15 times 5. 15 times 5 is 75. So I know my final answer should be 75 cubic meters. Did you get it correct? Hopefully you did. So then when we look at 6, checking out your work, this one was a little different because the corner of the triangle was the right angle. They didn't give me these 2 extra measurements to try to confuse me. They only gave me 1, that hypotenuse. So hopefully you still use the 4 and the 5 because you noticed the right angle and you chose the right ones to use. So when I use my 4 and my 5, I have my base times my height divided by 2 for the area of my triangle. I'd have 4 times 5 divided by 2, and 4 times 5 is 20 divided by 2, which left me with 10. Then I look for my height. From base to base, triangle to triangle, is the measurement of 7. So I multiplied my 10 by my 7 for my height. Hopefully you got 70 cubic meters to have the correct label. So this isn't designed to be a difficult lesson at all. It's to go back to the idea that if I find the base of a shape, if it be a cube or a rectangular prism or a triangular prism, and then I multiply by the height, I'm still doing the same thing here as the process as length times width times height. The only difference with every one of these is you find the area of the base, and every base is a triangle. So make sure you use the formula for area of a triangle. Base times height divided by 2 before you multiply by the height. Should be a pretty easy lesson. We should all start out with an A in math for this 9 weeks. If you have any questions as you're working on it though, please don't hesitate to come and ask.